The anime community, more specifically shonen anime community, are always at each other's throats about which series is better and who's stronger and blah blah blah. It's all monkey talk. And I guess I am one, because today I will introduce my fighter into the ring, Jujutsu Kaisen. My hypothesis is that Jujutsu is carrying Shonen Jump, besides One Piece, and is single-handedly pushing the genre into a new age. And here's why. Because it's cool as shit.
If you gotta do it then 他にの主義が Everybody just talk Nobody really do it なんならやるまでしとけよ秘密に誰かと確認なんて不要自分のジャッジだけで break the walls
Jujutsu Kaisen was the biggest anime of last year, so I doubt you need any introduction, but if you do, here is a professional synopsis to get you caught up before we start. So our story follows Yuji Itadori, who is scientifically the strongest asshole in Japan for no reason, and one day, when his grandpa up and dies, he and standard quiet dude protagonist have to stop this curse from hurting Yuji's. And in a frenzy, he eats a very ancient relic, and due to his bad case of main character syndrome, he survived the 1 in a million chance and is now a host for the strongest cursed spirit to ever live. And he gets put on death row. But thanks to the strongest in the universe, he is enrolled in Jujutsu High as a dragon radar to find all 20 of the bad demon man's fingers, so then they can kill him at the end of the series. All caught up? Cool. In this video, I will be freely talking about the contents of the anime so far and minor manga stuff, and will give a warning when I get into major manga spoilers. And don't worry, I won't be touching on my sweet little baby boy Yuta in Volume 0 in this video, because I'm saving that for when the movie comes out later this year so more people will know what my ranting and ravings on this overpowered widowed high schooler are all about. Without further ado, get buckled kids, because it's time for a field trip.
Seatbelts, everyone! Please let this be a normal field trip. With a friend? No way!
Cruising on down Main Street, you're relaxed and feeling good.
The first step to this being such a good-ass show is its lovable and idiotic cast. All of the characters are well developed and have convincing aspirations and reasons to do what they do. Unlike a lot of other shonen, they aren't necessarily big and grandiose dreams, rather they're very grounded, and that's why I think it's so much easier to understand these characters and see them as people. Like Yuji, who really just wants to choose how he dies, surrounded by his friends, and to help others achieve the same. He's a big force in the theme of a proper death in the story. He doesn't want to save the world or become the strongest like a standard protag, and I love him for that. Characters like Maki, who do this mainly out of spite, or Megumi, who just wants to save his sister and doesn't really care about saving altruistically. I could go on and on about the cast motivations and why I love them so much, but I'm going to focus on one in particular to show you my point. Nanami. He was a student at Jujutsu High, as that was what he was set out to do as someone with cursed abilities. However, after he graduated, he left because he hated that lifestyle. He became a salaryman, and eventually he grew depressed. He hated his job and his new life. The monotony killed him. But one day, while at a bakery he frequented, the girl at the counter he had come to know had a curse on her shoulder, and he killed it for her, without her realizing. He didn't need her to realize, but he finally understood. He was meant to help people like that. And he returned to the Jujutsu world to fend off cursed spirits. He doesn't even have an aspiration necessarily, but he still feels like such a strong character because of how fleshed out and real he is written to feel. Obviously, a dream isn't the only thing that makes a character good, and don't worry, all of them are written to perfection, with legitimately deep character flaws that aren't necessarily called out but are visible to those who pay attention, and those flaws tend to have consequences. All of these main characters feel like real people. Maybe not exactly normal, they have their moments, but they do feel real. Their simple yet heavy and telling backgrounds communicate this well and bring to light why these people are who they are. On the flip side, there is one person who is larger than life. Gojo. His entire purpose is that he is the strongest. This is a solidified fact, and he is the one exception to that normality, for he is the honored one no one else can even compare. He's so insanely cool and also insanely stupid. In a storytelling sense, he is absolutely incredible, and as you get shown the pinnacle of power in the world right off the bat, and as a character, he's amazing too. He's got an insanely large cool factor, and everything he does has me hyped. What he stands for in the themes and plot is reason alone to love him, but his charm and attitude only add on to that. But he can also be a bit loony. In fact, like I mentioned earlier, most of the main cast are a little screwed in the head. Like, I don't know what kind of shit Nobara's into, but damn, give me some of that. All of the main cast is amazing and I love them. And if you're wondering, my favorite characters are Yuji, Maki, Yuta, and Choso. Take from this what you wish. The villains are amazing as well. Sukuna, who acts as the stereotypical monster in the belly kind of villain, is legitimately an awful, person? Yo, what do I call them? Things? Is that insensitive? Either way, he is so hateable and has near no redeeming qualities. As is with all the other cursed spirits like Mahito, Jogo, etc., besides the fact that they are really built up as these non-human things. Like, to them, none of what they do is evil per se, more so how they work and for their own good. Except for Mahito. Fuck everything about him. And that's the great part. They have good motivations and are well developed and are so insanely hateable. I hate them. And by them, I mean Mahito. A lot. I have never in my life seen choreography as good as this in a manga. Keep in mind, I can count how many manga I've read with two hands, Shonen on one, but my point still stands. Akutami has a way with the flow of drawing the fights that just make it feel so damn cool. And I didn't really notice this till Shibuya. Obviously, it is amazing all the way through, but something about all those fights are just so good. The movement and power to the fights are a big reason, but not the only, as to why the fights have me screaming at every page turn. It's also because of the implementation. The pacing to them is almost always spot on and never feels slow or rushed. It keeps you wanting more and more every panel. The emotional build-up is always well crafted as well, with many fights going in knowing full well the stakes and matchups, and hell, even if you don't, that makes the fights even better because you're constantly getting new information and back and forth momentum between the characters. The anime makes these fights even better with the absolutely stunning animation and visuals, the tremendous pacing and music and voice acting as well. This is what I'd call a damn near perfect adaptation, and honestly cannot think of a single thing that the anime did that isn't at least on par with the manga for the content it's adapted so far. But I want you to keep in mind the incredible artwork in the manga going forward. Because obviously the art isn't clean or detailed as something like My Hero Academia, but the way Akutami draws adds so much simple emotion and depth to the characters, and especially in the fights. The way they draw them is incredible. They are a master of motion and power in a 2D and still medium. The fact they can draw this and you can feel and see the exact movement and power behind the hits is insane. And the panel composition is incredible too. One thing I don't think many people think about as to why the Jujutsu manga's fights are so hype is because of narration. For some reason, when you're in the middle of an intense moment and someone whips out an ultimate move and the narrator pops in and explains what just happened and how many people just fucking died, it's completely unmatched and has me begging for more, has me wishing for more excruciating details. I know some people find narration weird, but for me it's really helpful for things that would feel weird, for character explaining or for just creating little hype moments out of things that no character could feasibly explain until after the fact when all the tension's gone. Now I know, you're asking what my favorite fights in the series are. Well, I'll tell you. Yuji vs. Choso and Yuji vs. Mahito Round 2. To avoid spoilers for this part of the video, I'll explain more in detail later in this video, but just, God, I don't think I'll ever read entire fights that have gotten me that consistently turned on. Like back to back to back, pounding me. They're just absolute masterpieces, bro. I don't know what you want from me. Obviously, themes and how they are presented and their importance in the story are a big part of what makes the greats great, and Jujutsu Kaisen is no exception. Akutami has a fantastic way of very overtly and simultaneously very subtly presenting the themes of the story. Like his very overt theme of a proper death illustrated through Itadori's experiences and his literal driving force, while also very subtly building upon that with the growing experiences the cast have and showing slowly but surely not everyone can have a perfect death. The theme of purpose that plays into the theme of a proper death is one of my favorites. I'll go in a bit more detail later, but the parallels between Mahito and Itadori as their quote-unquote purposes become more clear is a big reason as to why I think this works so well. And in that, Akutami shows their wonderful writing ability and use of dialogue, expressing that theme of destiny and fate through Gojo's words and how he feels he's a representation of Buddha, adding on to that selfish, bombastic personality of his. Akutami has incredibly smart and witty writing that makes an insane amount of references to Japanese culture that allow you to predict what is coming next or to better understand characters like that previous Gojo line. Looking at these, you can see that the themes are in many cases darker than other shonen, but are also used to build and flesh out on the characters. Akutami loves to show us these themes or messages and then use them down the line to hurt us. Like a growing theme throughout is that of familial bonds and how you don't need to be bound by blood to have a family. Like Nobara here, expressing that sentiment. Like this, many times, lighthearted fun moments or the upbeat personality of the characters make all of these dark, depressing moments that much more upsetting, simply due to how well Akutami writes those differences. His highs are high, the comedic bits are hilarious and usually very bright, while the dark stuff is dark, like upsetting to the point of you need to take a break. After a few points, I had to stop and just go read the Dealing with Loss book on my bookshelf. I love how Akutami is completely willing to do whatever they want in the story. Many writers would be wary about killing off characters or doing certain story beats, but not my mangaka, oh no. Akutami will perfectly set up a trope, like the misguided kid turned into the side of good, then fucking murder him right in front of you. This is one of Akutami's biggest strengths in creating these emotional moments. Whether it's by taking an unexpected turn, or even if you can see where it's going, it always still hits right in the heart. Now, with all this said, one of the most important themes, for me personally, is that of shattering the status quo, just as Akutami is. In the Jujutsu world, those at the top will do anything to maintain the way things are. They will sacrifice and kill new upcoming prospects if necessary, and kick out those of which who are not useful. A big part of Gojo's personality and his driving force is changing this status quo and flipping the Jujutsu world on its head. And interestingly, that's the same goal as the Curse Spirits, however, to change the entire world into one of which spirits rule. This theme takes great importance in our world, and I definitely feel Akutami is using this as a heavy point of conflict for a reason, as a way to show us we shouldn't be afraid to change. If you've liked everything in this video up until now, make sure to read the manga so you can know everything for this next bit, and if not, skip ahead to the timestamp above to skip manga spoilers, and without further ado, I present to you a live reenactment of my reading of the Shibuya Incident arc. Before the Shibuya Incident, I thought this manga was really good. I'd been catching up and heard a lot of good things about this arc, obviously, so I was excited to binge through it. I shouldn't have been. It is filled with nothing but sorrow. Now if you're here, I'm gonna assume you already know that. And in the small chance you're a dirty, smelly liar who hasn't read it and is watching this anyway, well, good for you, I guess. So, before the Shibuya Incident, we can all agree that the Gojo's past arc was incredible. Toji was an amazing and sexy and strong and well thought out and written character. His presence added to Megumi's character as well, and seeing Gojo become who he is today, along with Geto, was a treat. But then again, killing Rico was not cool. 0 out of 10 on the swag meter. Now, when the Shibuya arc started, I did not expect to enjoy Mekamaru so much in his couple chapter long story. I had a very weak opinion on him beforehand, and the fact Akutami could make me care in like 3 chapters, then immediately sad when he gets completely fucking obliterated was pretty impressive. Now, for the entire Shibuya arc, there's 2 MVPs, Nanami and Todo. Nanami destroyed so many bitches in this arc, half of which he did with half of a body, and even post-mortem caused this asshole to die. He also was the motivation for Yuji to get himself back up in the fight and go absolutely bonkers on Mahito and make him wish he wasn't such a bitch. Speaking of which, so was Todo. He came in and allowed, along with Nanami's wishes, our favorite MC to have his big moment. Todo also handed out ass whoopings on a silver platter, and he was only in like less than 10 chapters out of 58. Showed up right at the end and still did more than most of these guys. But basically everyone in the arc did get a solid shining moment, a few more so than others. To start, Megumin did great throughout, and finally using his trump card made for a great fight with Sukuna, showing us he really is devoted to keeping Megumi alive. Nobara as well had plenty of good character moments, and we got to see her past, of course, before she probably fucking ate it. Also, old man Naobito was so cool for God knows why. Dude 71 lost his arm and was still kicking a special grade's ass. Until Mount Fuji came in and one-shot him, but that's not important. Mei too. Her whole fight was so cool. And she's bad as fuck. Why does Akutami got me hot for some drawings? Damn! Anyway, after Jogo murdered everyone and made Maki hot, in both ways, he fought Sukuna and made for, surprisingly, one of the best moments in the arc when Sukuna, in stark contrast to Gojo, called Jogo strong and complimented him after the fight. Obviously, he killed him in cold blood, but it was a really nice moment. Not like it was Sukuna having empathy, but more of showing that he has a piece of honor or respect in him. Making him less, I'm gonna kill and eat all the women and children, helped me to appreciate him as a villain. Now, I mentioned earlier my favorite 2 fights, and when rereading for this video, I've definitely decided my favorite fight is Yuji versus Choso. Don't get me wrong, round 2 with Mahito is good, but it just doesn't hit as hard as these 2 simply throwing hands like it's 2016 in my middle school bathroom. I can't even describe to you why it is, but if you've read it, I think you'll understand. It's just the way the battle builds and the tension and the hype is magnificent. However, Mahito round 2 is definitely better thematically, and it is fantastic as the big climactic battle of the arc. The way it builds the tension with Nanami's death and Nobara joining, only for her to, die? Maybe? I'm still unsure. And then for Todo to join and finally end it with a one-on-one with both Yuji and Mahito at max power, Yuji wiping the floor with him, obviously. And the whole building of the We Are the Same dynamic and how it drastically changes during the fight is spectacular. The imagery of Itadori becoming a wolf, hunting Mahito as he has accepted his purpose of killing cursed spirits is incredible. And his speech telling Mahito he's gonna kill him over and over no matter how many times he reincarnates is so cool. The wrap up for the arc was intense and had me on my toes the entire time, and really set up the course of the rest of the series. The next few chapters were incredible, with Yuta coming back and everything being completely out of whack after what happened. Getting to see the consequences of a large-scale arc like that is really cool, and I always enjoy it. Now, the perfect preparation chapters. Holy shit. Maki fucking Zainin. I said it earlier, she's one of my favorites, and that is 90% because of these chapters. She is such a good character, and so insanely strong too, and boy, strong women? Don't even, I can tell she's going to be incredibly important moving forward, and I wouldn't have it any other way. And with that, we've caught up to the newest chapter where Hikari is introduced, and I can confidently say I am insanely excited for the Culling Games, and Akutami has been doing a fantastic job building this arc up. Now, whether you watched the Shibuya section of the video or not, I hope if you hadn't read the manga before this video, I could convince you to do so. This is such a beautiful, incredibly awesome story that I wholeheartedly believe is changing the game for shonen as a whole. Akutami is carrying the legacy of many older shonen and has used all of that in order to change it in their own way to create a new, better path. Jujutsu has easily reinvented the curse genre and has pushed all other shonen around it to strive for more. Akutami recently had to take an over month-long break due to health reasons and just returned last week with another amazing chapter. So now is a better time than ever to get caught up. It's changed the formula, and despite its very clear inspirations, I can still confidently say, no one is doing it like Jujutsu Kaisen.
So hold my hand.